For 5 years, the woman who hijacked my body played house. Then she got bored. She and her system abandoned this world, leaving me with a spoiled tyrant of a son and a husband who barely recognized me. As I came back to myself, a stream of floating comments scrolled across my vision like a live feed. What a disaster. She had 5 years and accomplished nothing except dodging her own death and maxing out credit cards. Her mission had been simple: fix the mini villain and soften the big villain. Instead, she made everything worse. My son was unbearable, my husband distant, and I, apparently, was a disposable side character destined to die early in the novel. A loud thudding came from the staircase. A round little boy barreled down, my son. He glanced at me, ignored me, and headed straight for the refrigerator. The nanny chased after him, pleading about his third ice cream bar of the day. He didn't care. The comments drifted by, mocking the transmigrator for loving him through pure indulgence. The boy, Leo, finally looked at me, full of disdain. "You're so annoying. You can't tell me what to do." Then he shoved ice cream into his mouth and lifted both middle fingers at me. A cold, controlled anger snapped inside me. I grabbed his shoulder. "Who taught you that? Let go. You'll be sorry when my dad gets home." I told the stunned nanny to bring me packing tape. I wrapped his fists, leaving only his raised middle finger sticking up. If he liked the gesture so much, he could hold it for a while. Later, he threatened to tell his father I'd bullied him. I asked when Cole was coming home. The nanny said he was in Chicago for a week. She admitted Leo behaved better around him. Upstairs, I discovered a keypad lock on the master bedroom, installed to keep the transmigrator out. Ignoring the scrolling commentary, I entered a code only I would know. The door opened. Nearly everything inside was exactly as I'd left it 5 years ago, except for a stack of locked journals on the nightstand. Some pages were wrinkled as if water-stained. I left them untouched. At dinner, the nanny began cooking according to Leo's demands, but I stopped her. He was on a diet. He protested, but eventually apologized and let me remove the tape. The comments panicked about Cole's eventual return, but I pushed the thought aside. When Leo refused to eat the vegetable sandwich I made, he ran off. I calmly began clearing out his hidden snack stashes. We caught him eating chips under his bed. Watching his treasured snacks disappear broke him. He cried quietly, real tears. I hugged him and explained the snacks weren't gone forever, only confiscated. He clung to me and whispered, "Mommy." My heart twisted. Over the next 2 days, we waged a silent war. Finally, I made a deal: he could have snacks, but he had to burn the calories. That evening I had him pull me on a wiggle car using a rope harness. He nearly collapsed but didn't complain. When the nanny took him to kindergarten Monday, I reviewed the tech company Cole, and I had founded. To my surprise, he had grown it massively in the past 5 years. Even my shares had multiplied. At least I would have financial independence if things went badly. My phone rang. Leo had assaulted another child. At school, the footage showed he had pushed a little girl. I asked him calmly if she had provoked him. He shook his head. I apologized to the girl's mother, offered to cover all expenses, and signed Leo out for the day. He expected me to yell. I didn't. All evening he hovered around me, anxious. During our walk, he offered to pull the wiggle car again. I refused. He didn't need to burn extra calories that day. Later he tugged at my sleeve. "You're not mad about today?" I told him I believed in him and wanted to hear his side before judging. He burst into tears. Between sobs, he explained the other kids called him fat and compared him to Dudley Dursley. Lily, the girl he pushed, never called him names. He only wanted her attention. I explained that Lily had the right not to play with him, just like he had the right not to accept being called names. Respect went both ways. When he realized he had done to her what others did to him, he looked crushed. He promised to apologize properly. The next morning, I let him take his limited edition snack box as a peace offering. Before he went inside, I told him to clearly tell the teacher if anyone called him names again. "You've done your part. The rest isn't your fault." I watched him bow to Lily in apology. Weeks passed. Leo's smile grew more frequent. His teachers intervened with the bullies, and Lily forgave him. She even gave him a bag of homemade cookies. Then the night of Cole's return arrived. I was asleep when hands suddenly closed around my throat in the dark. A furious voice hissed, "How did you get in here? Did your system crack the code? I told you never to come near my room." I recognized Cole instantly. Without thinking, I slapped him across the face. The crack echoed through the room. The sound of my hand cracking against his cheek shocked us both. Cole's grip loosened just enough for me to suck in air. I coughed, throat burning, fingers digging into his wrists. For a second all I saw was the outline of him in the dark, broad shoulders, the familiar slope of his nose, the furrow between his brows that meant he was furious and holding it in. Then the comments flared. "OMG, she actually slapped him back. Villain husband aggro plus 100. Did the transmigrator get a backbone update or what?" I asked. He hissed, voice low and shaking with rage, "How you got in here?" "I live here," I rasped, shoving at his chest. "And if you try to strangle me again, I'll call the cops and tell them the CEO of Viriotech tried to murder his wife in her sleep." He froze. For one strange, suspended second, we just breathed, chest to chest, his fingers still hovering near my throat. The room smelled like his cologne, clean cedar and something sharp underneath. The bedside lamp clicked on with a snap of his wrist. The harsh light revealed the print of my hand blooming red across his cheekbone. His eyes, usually cool and unreadable, were wild. "You are not my wife," he said. "My wife died 5 years ago." The comments went insane. "Oh, here we go, truth bomb. Bro, you literally sleep in the same house with her. He thinks OG is gone and only FL plus system are left, yikes." I stared at him. For a moment my brain stuttered, trying to reconcile the words with the man in front of me. This was the first time he'd said anything out loud that confirmed what the scrolling text already hinted, that he knew, at least on some level, that the person in my body hadn't been me. "Get out," he said, voice flat now. The rage had iced over. "Whatever hack your system used, undo it. Go back to whatever world you crawled out of." "I don't have a system," I said. He laughed once, humorless. "That's funny, coming from the woman who bargained with it in front of me." A memory I didn't own flickered in the edge of my mind, her voice, light and careless, saying something about quest rewards while she scrolled through an invisible panel only she could see. That wasn't me. "Cole," I said slowly, choosing each word, "I woke up on the living room sofa 2 weeks ago with a splitting headache and 5 years of missing time. The one with the system left. I'm the original." He stared at me like I'd sprouted horns. His jaw tightened, I could almost hear him grinding his teeth. Then another line of text scrolled by, glowing brighter than the rest. "System disconnect confirmed. Original soul restored. Plot deviation at 47%. I swallowed. "You don't see that, do you?" "See what?" he asked sharply. "Nothing," I said automatically. "Coward," the comments booed. "Tell him. Tell him. Tell him." "Prove it," he said. "If you're the original, prove it." His tone made it clear he expected me to fail. My heart pounded. "When we moved into this house," I said, "you insisted on carrying me over the threshold, even though I told you it was cliched and my dress was too tight. You tripped on the rug and nearly dropped me. Leo kicked the inside of my ribs so hard I almost peed myself. You made pancakes that night and they were raw in the middle, and you swore me to secrecy because you didn't want your mother to know you couldn't cook." He didn't move, but the color drained from his face. "That first investor meeting when nobody took me seriously," I went on, the words coming faster now that the dam had cracked, "you slid your notes to me under the table anyway. You let them think you were just the coder and I was the face. Afterwards you spent 2 hours rewriting the backend because you were embarrassed by your own code. You only drink black coffee when you're trying to impress someone. Otherwise you drown it in sugar. You hate cilantro. You secretly cry at dog movies." His throat worked. The comments faltered, then reformed into a stream of question marks. "Is she actually OG wife? Wait, she knows pre-transmigration scenes, how? Author, what the hell is happening?" He stepped back from the bed like it burned him. The pressure on my throat vanished completely. "Stop," he said hoarsely. My hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. My neck throbbed. I can keep going, I whispered. Do you want me to list the names we picked out for the baby we lost? Because she didn't know those? I do. His eyes slammed shut. The room was quiet except for our breathing. Even the comments stuttered, then dimmed as if someone had turned down their volume. When he opened his eyes again, the fury had been replaced by something worse, raw, naked grief. I watched you die, he said quietly. On our kitchen floor. 1 second you were there, the next. Gone. The woman who woke up wasn't you. She laughed at things you never would have laughed at. She didn't know what you knew. She called our son Brad an NPC. The word made my skin crawl. NPC. Non-player character. Background extra. Disposable. And you, I said, something jagged cutting through my chest, treated her like she was me. His expression shuddered. I tried, he admitted. For Leo's sake. For the company's. For my sanity. But I couldn't. He broke off, jaw clenching. So you locked me out of our bedroom, I said. Out of you. His gaze flicked involuntarily toward the nightstand, where the journals sat, stacked in their usual neat tower. You saw those, he said. I didn't read them, I replied. Yet. The comments perked up again. Read them, read them, read them. Journals equals husband POV DLC. I thought if I wrote to you, he said, voice nearly a whisper now, some part of you might hear me. That you were. Stuck. Somewhere, he laughed weakly. Insane, right? He didn't realize how close he'd been. I looked at him, really looked, past the anger and the exhaustion carved into the lines at the corners of his mouth, and saw the man I'd fallen in love with under all the ice. The man who had slept in an airport chair all night because he refused to leave me alone before my surgery. The man who once cried in our parked car after a board meeting and then pretended his eyes were red from allergies. I thought of Leo calling me mommy as his fingers dug into my shirt, terrified I'd throw his snacks away forever. Of the tape wrapped around his hands, his middle finger jutting up like a tiny, obscene flag. I thought of the way he bowed to Lily with that oversized limited edition snack box clutched in his arms. I realized this new timeline was already diverging, tiny ripples shifting the shore. Cole, I said, the woman you hated is gone. I don't have a system. All I've got is this. I tapped my temple. Random commentary I didn't ask for. His eyes sharpened. Commentary? I hesitated. The comments erupted. Don't out us, you idiot. Protect the fourth wall. Let him suffer in ignorance. Voices, I said instead. Text. Like subtitles only I can see. They talk about plot points and villains and death flags. They called Leo a mini-villain. They called you the big one. They called me. My throat tightened. They called me disposable. His knuckles went white. And this has been going on for 5 years? For me? I shook my head. 2 weeks. For her. I don't know. We stood in silence that thrummed with things unsaid. Finally, he spoke. If you're really you, he said slowly, then everything I've been holding back, everything I did to that woman. He broke off again, jaw tightening. Everything you did to me, I finished for him, because regardless of who was in my body, my lungs had still breathed it all in. You don't get to separate it that cleanly. He flinched like I'd hit him. The comments clapped. Accountability arc, let's go. I took a breath, feeling my own anger simmer. It would have been so easy to pour gasoline on it. To let it rage, to punish him, to scream about how he should have known, should have tried harder, should have saved me somehow. But in my peripheral vision, another line of text shimmered into existence, separate from the messy crowd. Upcoming plot point, original wife's death by accidental car crash, witnessed by son. Trigger, confrontation with husband within 24 hours. My skin went cold. There it was. The early exit. The scene I was supposed to die in. The old timeline, waiting like a trap. I could almost see it, the fight with Cole. Me storming out, Leo chasing after me, the screech of tires, the sickening crunch. The woman with the system had sidestepped it with her own deal. I hadn't. Until now. I looked at Cole. At the man who had just had his reality cracked open, who still half believed I was a hallucination. At the father my son adored and feared in equal measure. I thought of Leo, trying to pull the wiggle car with his chubby legs shaking, because I'd told him that if he wanted snacks he had to work for them. I thought of the quiet, wet sound of him crying under his bed when I emptied his stashes and the way his shoulders loosened when I hugged him instead of yelling. This was the fork in the road. My death scene or something else. I exhaled slowly. "We're not doing this tonight," I said. His brows snapped together. "Doing what?" "Blowing up," I said. Screaming. Rehashing 5 years with a stranger. I'm tired, I have a bruise forming on my neck, and Leo will be up at 6 asking for dinosaur-shaped pancakes. We can either destroy each other right now or table this until our son is not in the blast radius. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. The comments went silent, one by one, like someone was muting them. Then, reluctantly. "Okay, that's actually growth." She dodged the death flag? Plot deviation at 63%. That woman, Cole said quietly, would have thrown a vase at my head. "I'm not her," I said. He searched my face for a long moment, then nodded once, as if sealing some private equation. "I'll sleep in the guest room," he said. "You've been sleeping in the guest room," I replied. "I moved back into our bedroom 2 days ago. You get the couch. Consider it penance for attempted strangulation." A ghost of something like humor flickered across his features. "Fair." He turned to leave, then hesitated with his hand on the doorknob. "Tomorrow," he said, still not looking at me, "I want to talk. I want to know everything you remember. Everything you don't." "Tomorrow," I agreed. When he left, the room felt too big. The comment stream, now thinner, hovered at the edge of my vision like a sulking cloud. "Nice job dodging the truck coon event. Death flag temporarily postponed. But you can't dodge them all forever," side character. "We'll see," I whispered. Alone, I picked up the top journal from the nightstand. The leather was worn soft at the edges, the pages swollen. When I opened it, the first thing that hit me was his handwriting, precise, slanting slightly right, packed with tightly controlled emotion. The second thing was the water damage. The pages weren't splashed randomly. The wrinkling radiated out from certain sentences. As I traced them, the comments dimmed further, like the world itself was leaning in to listen. Day 12. She laughed when Leo fell. You never would have. Day 57. She asked what our Wi-Fi password was. You picked it. Day 104. I tested her. Mentioned the song you played on repeat when we were coding our first prototype. She said she hated it. You used to dance in your chair. My chest ached. Day 200. They say grief has stages. I think I'm stuck between denial and rage. I see your face and hear a stranger. If this is my punishment for ignoring you that night, then fine. I'll carry it. But if you're out there somewhere, I want you to know, I knew. I knew it wasn't you. My vision blurred. I blinked the tears away, forcing myself to keep reading. Day 341. I signed the papers to install the lock today. She threw a tantrum downstairs. I pretended not to hear. This room is the only place that still feels like you. If that makes me a coward, so be it. Day 493. Leo called her mom. I threw up in the bathroom afterward. Day 728. She screamed at him for getting an answer wrong on his math worksheet. You would have bought him ice cream and said numbers could be tamed with patience. I'm watching him turn cruel, and I feel helpless. I'm failing you. I'm failing him. On and on it went, a parallel story written in ink and salt water. The last entry, dated 2 weeks ago, right before I woke up, was smudged so badly I almost couldn't read it. Day 1827. I had a dream where you were sitting at the kitchen table drawing little birds in the margins of the grocery list. You turned, smiled, and said, "It's okay, Cole. I'm not mad." I woke up and she was scrolling through the air, negotiating with something I couldn't see. I'm going crazy. Or the world is. Maybe both. The pen had pressed so hard into the paper at the last line that it had torn. If another her is what it takes to give Leo a mother, I'll play the villain. I'll take the hate. But I don't know how much longer I can stand looking at your face and not seeing you. My fingers trembled. For 5 years, I had imagined him cold, indifferent, perfectly content with his system-equipped replacement. I'd blamed him for every wound that stranger inflicted with my hands and my voice. But the journals recontextualized everything, the lock, the distance, even the way he'd looked at me tonight. It hadn't been simple hatred. It had been terror, guilt, and a desperate attempt to survive a nightmare. The comments, for once, were quiet. Only one floated up, thin and almost apologetic. Okay, villain husband backstory unlocked, I feel bad now. I closed the journal gently and pressed it to my chest, letting myself grieve for the years I'd lost and the man who'd been trapped with a ghost wearing my skin. In the morning, Leo burst into the bedroom without knocking, launching himself onto the bed like a cannonball. "Mom," he shouted. "You're awake. I had a dream you were a zombie and ate Daddy's brain." "Tempting," I muttered. He giggled, then squinted at my neck. "What happened there?" I touched the tender skin. "I wrestled with a monster," I said. "Don't worry. I won." He considered this serious news, then nodded solemnly. "Can we have pancakes?" "Vegetable pancakes," I corrected. He groaned theatrically. "You're a monster." As I dragged myself downstairs to make breakfast, the comment stream flickered uneasily, like a signal cutting in and out. Warning, male lead remorse arc initiated. Original death flag averted. Adjusting difficulty for mini-villain redemption route. I paused in the doorway of the kitchen. "No," I said. The comments rippled. "No? I'm not doing your routes," I said under my breath, keeping my voice low so Leo wouldn't hear. "I'm not here to soften a villain or raise a future tyrant. I'm here to be a person. A mother. Myself." There was a long, stretching silence. Then, for the first time since I reawakened, a different line of text appeared, boxy and system-like, superimposed on the usual chaotic feed. System, host connection permanently terminated. Observation-only mode engaged. Plot control authority, partial. I exhaled. My shoulders dropped a fraction. Cole and I talked that afternoon, while Leo was at school. It wasn't neat or pretty. There were raised voices, long pauses, confessions that landed like stones dropped into deep water. I told him about the ice cream, the tape, the chip stashes under the bed. About the kindergarten incident and Leo's quiet confession on the sidewalk, cheeks still damp with tears. "You believed him," Cole said, something like wonder in his tone. "Someone has too," I replied. He pressed his fingers to his lips, thinking. "I should have taken him out of here," he said. "Away from that thing in your body." "You didn't know how," I said. "It wasn't a free pass, but it was the truth. You were drowning too." Later that week, we sat in the principal's office together as Leo apologized to Lily again, this time with less stammering. He offered her a small bag of the fancy cookies he'd baked himself, under my supervision, with only minimal eggshell in the batter. Cole watched, strangely quiet. On the drive home, Leo fell asleep in the back seat, arms wrapped around his backpack. "He looks smaller when he's not yelling," Cole said softly. "He's terrified all the time," I answered. "But he doesn't have the words for it. So he throws ice cream and middle fingers instead." Cole's hand tightened around the steering wheel. "What do we do?" "We." It was such a small word, but it landed like a turning point. "We get him a therapist," I said. "We stop using food as a bandage and start teaching him feelings aren't punishable offenses. We show up. And if the comments tell us we're doing it wrong, we ignore them." He glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. "Comments?" I debated, then sighed. "You're not getting out of this co-parenting thing that easily," I said. "If I can't break out of the story alone, then you're coming with me." That night, after Leo was in bed and the house had settled, we sat side by side on the living room couch, a cautious gulf of space between us. The journals lay open on the coffee table. "Tell me when it started for you," I said. "The weirdness." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "The night you died," he said. I heard a voice say host transfer complete like a notification. I thought it was the TV. Then she opened her eyes and looked at me like I was a character on a screen. A few days later, I heard someone narrating my life. At first, it was faint. Then it got louder. It told me things like smile, Dylan, or you need to be colder. I thought I was losing my mind. He gave a short, breathless laugh. I went to a psychiatrist. She prescribed antipsychotics. The commentary said, "Nice try. The script is locked." The hairs on my arms rose. In the corner of my vision, the remaining text shrank, then rearranged itself into a single line. Observation acknowledged. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "You were already gone," he said simply. "And whatever was in your body adored it." She called it her cheat code. She asked for quests. It gave them to her. The more she listened, the louder it got. For both of us. She got a system, I said slowly, the pieces clicking together. You got the backwash. He nodded. I locked the bedroom so she couldn't bring it in here. It was the only place I could breathe. I thought of the journals, of the water-swollen pages. He wrote, the comments whispered around the edges of my consciousness, like a tide pulling back. He wrote and no one answered. You're not alone anymore, I said, surprising myself with a certainty in my voice. They wanted us to be puppets, but their connections cut. We still have a story, but it's ours now. He looked at me for a long time. Do you still love me? He asked quietly, as if he already knew the answer and was bracing for impact. The question hit like a physical blow. I thought of the boy man who had burned with me through sleepless startup nights, the husband who had held my hair back when I threw up from morning sickness, the stranger who had choked me in the dark because he couldn't bear the idea of that system slithering back into his life. I thought of 5 years of absence that weren't really absence at all, but a kind of twisted, helpless loyalty. I don't know, I said honestly. I love who you were. I'm grieving who you weren't allowed to be. Right now, I trust you with our son more than I trust you with my heart. He flinched, but he didn't argue. That's fair, he said. Can I earn it back? I hesitated. The comments held their collective breath, waiting for the scripted answer, reconciliation or rejection, on cue. I don't want you to earn me back, I said slowly. I want you to become someone we both can live with. Whether we end up together or not. That, more than anything, felt like the decisive act. The moment I stepped off the track they'd laid for me, where my choices revolved around the male lead's affection, and onto something messier, smaller, but real. The comment stream glitched. Plotline tragic disposable wife terminated. New route generating. For a heartbeat, the words flickered, then broke apart, dissolving into static. When the static cleared, only a faint, ghostly overlay remained, translucent, like graffiti someone had tried to scrub from a wall. You're quieter, I murmured. No response. I smiled, unexpected and small. Weeks became months. Leo's tantrums slowly became less volcanic and more like weather, predictable storms we could plan for. He learned to ask, are you mad or just tired? And I learned to say, I'm overwhelmed, but I'm not leaving. We instituted snack contracts, veggie requirements, and feelings charts on the fridge. We fought, apologized, fought again. We drew boundaries, ruined some, rebuilt better ones. Cole started coming home earlier. Sometimes we talked about work, sometimes we just sat in companionable silence while Leo narrated a game to us with wild hand gestures. Sometimes we fought about the past again, because healing wasn't linear and trauma didn't care about pacing. But every time we hit a breaking point, I thought of that glowing notification about my death event and refused to step in front of that metaphysical truck. I chose staying. I chose pausing. I chose not to weaponize my pain even when it begged to be thrown like a knife. One rainy afternoon, I reached for my phone and realized something startling. My field of vision was clear. No floating comments. No snarky narrator. Hello? I whispered, feeling ridiculous. Nothing answered. The silence was nice. I went upstairs, pulled out the last journal, and wrote in the margin of the final page. Day 1. Whoever was writing to me, I heard you. I'm back. I'm not leaving again. When I closed the cover, my reflection in the bedroom mirror looked different. Not younger, not magically beautified, just settled. My eyes were my own again. From downstairs, Leo shrieked with laughter. Cole's deeper voice answered, half exasperated, half amused. I walked toward the sound. For 5 years, someone else had played house with my life and treated me like a plot device. For 2 weeks after that, an invisible audience had evaluated my choices like I was a live show. Now, finally, I was off script. I had a mini ex-villain to raise, a man who might someday be more than my co-parent but didn't have to be, and a tech company that, if I played my cards right, could give me the independence to withstand whatever this half-broken universe threw at us next. And somewhere beyond whatever invisible screen I'd been crowded by, I had the faint, stubborn hope that if any other disposable side character was staring up at glowing text, they'd feel that script crack, just a little. I picked up a damp towel Leo had left on the floor, wrung it out, and smiled as I headed into the living room, where my son and the man who once almost strangled me were arguing over whose turn it was to be the dinosaur. Whatever this was now, it was ours. And for the first time since I opened my eyes on that sofa, I wanted to see what happened next.